Hey, happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the WCBI Boxed Out podcast. We have entered the unspeakable things portion of our quarantine. Robbie Faulk, the 247Sports, covers Mississippi State, also with the Starkville Daily News. Robbie, thank you for joining us.
Is this going to interrupt my days of our lives like y'all weather folks do?
No.
I don't want my show messed up.
I was not expecting that to be the first thing that came out of your mouth today.
Well, I would rather talk about that than sports, honestly.
So, Robbie,
we're going to get to this.
Right, Robbie, obviously the big news, Vic Schaefer is now a Texas Longhorn. When the news came down on Sunday, obviously, Robbie, you've been one of the guys who've always been strong on the Mississippi State beat and the women's basketball side. You know, was this as big a surprise to you as it felt like the rest of the world?
I mean, unquestionably, this was a huge shock. You can't even compare it to the Dan Mullen situation because everybody kind of saw that coming when Dan Mullen went to Florida. But, Vic Schaefer had a bona fide elite program at Mississippi State. I mentioned it in a column I wrote today. It kind of felt like this was finally an opportunity for Mississippi State to have an elite coach or a coach that you would consider among, top 25 in the country and keep him for a long period of time. He had things set up for the future. His roster's never been better than what it is right now. So, I think the concern was always Texas A&M, what was going to happen when Gary Blair retired at Texas A&M. For it to be Texas, I'm kind of shocked, to be honest with you. I know Texas is what it is. It's one of the biggest athletic departments in the country. They have as deep a pocketbook as anybody else. But for it to be Texas and for him to, be an Aggie and be a guy that grew up cheering against Texas and all that, it was just, to me, it was shocking. I always felt like Texas A&M was going to be a concern for Mississippi State whenever Gary Blair did decide to call it quits. But, when Karen Aston didn't have her contract renewed, I had no intentions of Vic Schaefer being up for that job. That was a big surprise. But Texas showed that they're very serious about women's basketball and competing with Kim Mulkey and Baylor in the Big 12.
Robbie, what do you think is one of the biggest factors around? Is it the budget? Obviously, Texas, I believe, is building a new facility for its basketball programs. If obviously none of us were in the room with Vic Schaefer when he had to make any kinds of these decisions, but what are some of the things that would stand out in your mind as a reason why he would leave as you mentioned, the roster that he built here at Mississippi State, the program that he built? What do you think are some of the main draws to go back besides him going home?
Yeah, I think that's a big factor is going home, but also the ceiling is just so much higher at Texas. They've been, a top 5 program before. They know what that feels like. They haven't been in the top 10 in the last couple of years, but that's been a program that's been steadily pretty good over the years. And Gail Gessenkors was there. They've had some great coaches there and some great teams in the past. They haven't been that in a while, but the ceiling is still very high there, like it is in just about any sport that they have, because they have the facilities, they have the money, and also – Vic has an opportunity now to recruit the state of Texas and could stay in the state of Texas and build a roster around that. He had recruited Texas pretty early in his career at Mississippi State. The last few years, not as much, but he's had some success with Mississippi State players from the state of Texas. He can recruit at a much higher level with the Longhorns. So I think just the simple fact of, going home is a big factor. I think he's going to have an increase in payday too, but I'm not sure money was just a big issue here because I think Mississippi State would have increased its pay as well. So going home and just, a better opportunity to consistently have a top 5 program year in and year out and to eventually get over the top and win a national championship, that probably factored in. But, I've reached out to Vic and tried to get his thoughts on that. I talked to John Cohen last night, and he didn't really have an answer for why Vic made the decision. He said, you'll have to talk to him about that. So I'm kind of, waiting to hear from Vic about the exact reason why he chose that opportunity because And women's basketball, more than any sport at Mississippi State, he had a chance to compete and win a national championship down the line, even more so with this roster he's got.
On the same line of waiting to hear Vic's thoughts on why exactly he did jump ship and go to Texas, fans and everyone alike still waiting to hear from Vic. We've all seen he's updated his Twitter already to being the UT head coach, but he hasn't himself addressed the fan base yet. What are your thoughts on his silence in the last 24 hours?
I think he's just trying to let the dust settle a little bit. I think all that was just such a shock. It's probably best just to kind of let that die down a little bit. I think he gave a quote in the official release, but I think people do want to hear from him and hear, his thoughts on his career at Mississippi State and what this program meant to him, because Mississippi State took a chance on him too. I mean, he was a guy that had not had a great career at Sam Houston State. He had been an assistant for several years, and a lot of people thought well of him as an assistant coach. But Mississippi State, jumped out there with Scott Strickland and said, "We're going to give this guy a shot. We really believe in what he's doing." And fans jumped on board with him pretty early too. So there was a lot of investment from Mississippi State and Vic Schaefer. Women's basketball does not make money. You lose millions of dollars every year on women's basketball. It doesn't make money for the school in the grand scheme of things. So if you're going to invest money in that, it's with the goal in mind that you're going to have a chance to win championships and hang banners. And that's what John Cohen and company decided to do. And, I think Vic owes a lot of gratitude to Mississippi State as well. State fans owe a lot to him, but he owes a lot to them as well for buying in, and for players too for buying into what he was selling.
There's a lot of confusion right now. Did Vic address his players before this bomb was dropped? Did he not? Are you able to clear up that uncertainty that Vic did or did not communicate with his players that he was leaving before it came out on social media? Because it seems like we all saw their reactions in real time when we found out.
Yeah, there seems to be some conflicting info there. Everything that I've gathered is that those players found out the same time as everybody else. They were all kind of reacting the same as everybody else when it happened. And I think that John Cohen talked to them. I think Vic also talked to them. But everything, I haven't gotten any confirmation on when those meetings took place. But everything that I've heard to this point is those players found out after the fact. And, I don't know if that's 100% accurate or not. If it is, then that's disappointing. But it happens all the time. I think Dan Mullen's players went through the same thing. They didn't find out until social media found out. And it's just it's something that's a growing concern in college sports, especially these coaches who are going behind everybody's back and interviewing with athletic departments and signing contracts without, their players find out on social media. That's something that has to stop. I mean, these players need to find out before everybody else does. But if that was the case, that is disappointing. But at the same time, I haven't been able to confirm when that meeting happened or not. So that's another thing that I'd like to get Vic to kind of clear up.
Right. If that was the case, how much of that do you think was maybe just an oversight that Texas's athletic director, Chris Del Conte, maybe just tweeted it out before thinking that Vic hadn't told his players or talked to them yet? Do you think that could have been a factor?
Yeah, it definitely could. I mean, there's folks, and they get really excited. They like to go straight to social media, and it could have just been a simple oversight, like you said. I mean, Chris Del Conte just wasn't thinking about how it's going to affect Vic's players and the recruits and all too. So, sometimes that stuff's just overlooked, but I'm sure that was addressed for the players too.
What do you think is next for Mississippi State, Robbie? Who's the people that are on the board to be the next head coach?
Yeah, I mean, when this happened, my first thoughts went to Matthew Mitchell, the Kentucky head coach. He's come out and made a tweet and telling everybody that he's going to stick with Kentucky, and you'd expect him to do that too. I mean, he's got signing day coming up. He wants to make sure his recruits are locked in too. I'm not saying that he's talking to Mississippi State right now. I have no idea if that's happened, but I did expect initially for him to be right at the top of the board. He's a Mississippi State graduate, grew up in Louisville, Winston County stand up. And it's always been thought, eventually that he might end up at Mississippi State. He was the top target or one of the top targets when Vic Schaefer was hired, and he actually turned the job down. But this is a much different job than when Schaefer was hired initially. This is a job that is top 5 in the country now as far as, what it's paying a coach and the athletes that they have on the court, the attendance that they get. So this is a top 10 job in women's basketball right now. So that certainly changes things. If, that it remains to be seen what his interest level would be. He's said that he's not interested, but we'll see. But and I think you have to throw Johnny Harris's name in there. Mississippi State's top flight assistant. She's been Vic Schaefer's right hand since the very beginning, and I think she's as much a part of this success as anybody because she's been the head recruiter. She's developed some great players like Tierra McCowan and Martha Allwall and Chinwe Okori. She's really developed and coached well. The players love her. The fans love her. She would be a no-brainer if you're going with an assistant. But, like I mentioned on our site yesterday, it all boils down to what John Cohen views this job. Does he view this as an opportunity to go get a big-time head coach that's already established? Does he feel like he can do that? Or does he want to kind of continue the line that Schaefer's kind of drawn and kind of keep that same principle in place with Johnny Harris? If you keep some of those, those same attributes or whatever in place, then Johnny is who you want to go with. So if you're going with an assistant, I think Johnny is unquestionably the top of the line. And, it is worrisome that she hasn't been a head coach yet, but I think she's ready for this opportunity. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that she just was not ready to go somewhere. And I think she was just kind of biding her time and kind of picking her shots and choosing where she wanted to go. I think if they offer the job, she will take it. I think that would be a no-brainer for her. So it's just going to be an interesting coaching search, I think. And there's some options there. We have a hot board on our website that has a lot of those options for you to look at. But it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Robbie, I know
Johnny. I was say when you mentioned Johnny really quick, Robbie, does her story almost remind you a little bit of Vic in a way? Being an assistant for as long as she's been and just waiting for that chance for a team to invest in her?
Yeah, outside the fact that Vic did coach at Sam Houston State, she's followed the same path. I mean, she's been the one that the head coach relied on heavily. Gary Blair would tell you that Vic was a big part of their development when he was at Texas A&M, that national championship team. Vic had a lot to do with that. And he relied on Vic a lot. He leaned on him. And I think Vic has done that a lot with Johnny Harris, especially with the player development piece. Johnny's been so good at working through issues with their players from a young age all the way to the point where they're seniors. And when you talk to those players when they're seniors, they're just completely different people. And a lot of that has to do with Johnny. Vic does, the day-to-day coaching and game planning, and he coaches them in practice. But Johnny and those assistants are the ones that sit down with the players and have conversations with them and talk about everyday life. And she's coached them through so many other things than just basketball. And I think that there's something to be said about that. And to me, we haven't seen her be a face of a program yet, but I think she's at the point now where she's ready to roll. So she's either going to be the head coach at Mississippi State, or I think she's going to follow Vic to Texas. And I think we'll know that relatively quick.
Robbie, I know you talk a lot with and have a good relationship with a lot of the players as well as their parents. What have you heard from either the players or their parents right now, given everything in the last 24 hours?
Well, everybody right now is just kind of taking a wait and see approach. I think, some of the players feel a little bit betrayed, just like any player would after losing their coach. Some of them are upset about it, and some of them understand how the business works, and that this is a business at the end of the day. So, right now all the players are sitting back and waiting. I've checked; there's nobody that's entered the transfer portal or anything like that. So everybody's just taking a wait and see approach to see who the next head coach is. If it is Johnny Harris, I expect the team to stay completely intact. She has a great relationship with everybody on this team, and everybody respects her and loves her. If it's somebody else, then we'll wait and see. You got to think there might be some attrition here or there, but so far nobody's hit the portal or anything like that. So everybody's been pretty calm with how they've handled this. And, I think a lot of that had to do with, maybe the assistant coaches talking to him and John Cohen yesterday about, just let this play out and then you can make your decision, because it's a crazy time for everybody right now.
Do you think it matters? Well, can the next coach mess up this situation? I mean, you have a lot of great talent on this team. Should they be able to just step in and things continue to, go seamlessly?
I mean, anytime that you have a change of a coaching change, a change of philosophy, or anything like that, there is that opportunity where things can go south. I think we saw that with Joe Moorhead when he came in. He had such a talented team and was only able to get 8 wins out of it. So there's always going to be that transition period, and that's another reason why Johnny Harris really works in this situation. But then you have to look at the fact that you kind of have to look long term, and if you don't think Johnny's the answer long term, then you have to go somewhere else. But as far as messing it up, it is about the players, but it's also about the coach too. I think the coach has a lot to do with the players performing at the highest level, because one thing Vic was able to do is get the best out of everybody. And he knew his players really well. He knew who fit in certain situations. He knew he would respond certain ways. So that's one thing that is worrisome. But you would certainly much rather have this roster than not. Whoever the coach is going to be inheriting the best roster in Mississippi State history as far as the talent's concerned. So it's a really good situation for somebody to walk into, but it's one of those that you want to handle very carefully and make sure that things don't go south in a hurry.
Obviously, people felt like Mississippi State is only a few years away from bringing that first national championship. How attainable, now that Vic is left, do you think that goal still is for this team?
It's in question just because you don't know who the next head coach is going to be. There's still opportunity there, especially if John decides, they want to go all in with this, which I think is going to be an intriguing part of this whole deal. The coronavirus stuff and, affecting athletic budgets. Do you want to spend the money that you were spending on Vic Schaefer for your women's basketball program? Because like I said, it's not making any money. You're losing money when you do this. So you're investing in that. If you're going to go all in, then you need to go get someone that you feel like is going to keep you where Vic Schaefer was or elevate you. So that's what's going to be intriguing. And I think, we'll know pretty quick if John is going all in. He went all in with football and really spared no expense with Mike Leach. Is he going to do that with women's basketball and try to take them to the next level? Or does the athletic department decide that, maybe they need to dial it back a little bit now with their next coach? Not saying that they should lose their expectations or, take it down a notch, but do you want to go get another Vic Schaefer at the level he is right now? Do you want to go spend $1.5 million? That's going to be the $1 million question, no pun intended, is if State wants to go that route. And, I think the goals are still there for Mississippi State to play for and eventually win a national championship. But it's going to take the right people. And like it did with Vic Schaefer, where the stars just kind of aligned with him. Now you have to get somebody that is going to take the expectations and either continue them or elevate them. And that's going to be the interesting thing to see.
So, Robbie, what you're saying is Twitter saying go get Don Staley is
–
way too hot of a take.
I mean, yesterday when that even came up in my mentions and was followed by thousands of South Carolina fans, I just I blacked out for a few minutes. I had to mute the conversation because I was just like, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen to me today. All this is already blowing up. I don't want to see this. But yeah, you're not. I mean, I saw some people saying, "Why don't you go get write Gino a check?" No, it's not going to happen. You're not going to get Gino. You're not going to get Kim Mulkey. You're not going to get Dawn Staley. That stuff's not going to happen. So, it's okay to set the expectations high. And Mississippi State's women's basketball program is on a different level than many of the other sports. But let's not start talking about going to get Nick Saban or anything.
Nick Saban for women's college basketball.
Yes. He could do
Let's
it.
stop there. Just get Greg Popovich to come down.
There you go. NBA.
There you go. Now, I will say two names that really intrigue me that would be, just from my personal opinion, that I think would be really good hires if you want to go a different direction from all this. Becky Hammond and Kara Lawson, who are in the NBA right now, both of those would be grand slams. I would really love to see that. And I wonder, we've seen Cohen go outside the box a lot in his coaching searches. I know both of those women want to have a coaching career in the NBA. That's kind of a goal for both of them. But I would love to see those two coaches, one of those two coaches in college basketball, coaching college basketball. And I'm here for Kara Lawson and Dawn Staley if that happens.
So it's actually funny because that was going to be the next question that I had was if you were to pick maybe like a left field hire, that Robbie Faulk's opinion of who you'd like to see, just out of the box. I thought mine personally was going to be Becky Hammond.
Yeah, I've seen her name pop up a lot, honestly, in the last 22, 24 hours. I've seen multiple people mention
It'd be a huge hire. It'd be a slam getting an NBA
and
assistant on there.
That would
no
work
doubt.
too, especially if they win a national championship and then State gets their championship and if Becky wants to go elsewhere after that, that's cool too, but it works out for everybody.
Yeah, and I wondered if either one of them would want to step in the college realm, because, like I said, I know that they both have goals of coaching on that level. Their foot's already in the door in the NBA, so I just kind of that would be my biggest question is whether or not they would want to go that route. But I think either one of them would be tremendous hires. I don't know what their price tag would be. Probably be relatively high, but those are both two hires that I could see John Cohen attempting to make. We saw him go after Joe Judge, who was way outside the box, outside of being a Mississippi State guy. That was going to be John Cohen's guy and kind of fit the mold of John Cohen too. I could see either Kara Lawson or Becky Hammond fitting that mold.
John Cohen has had a good amount of replacements he's had to go through during his tenure so far. How important do you think this is for John Cohen's career as an athletic director to finding the right person to fit this role?
Well, it's just like, any of his other sports. I think it falls behind football and all that, but he's going to be judged by these hires. And I think he's made some good hires on paper. Almost all of them have been really good hires on paper. Now, a couple of them haven't worked out. The Andy Kinzera thing was just a different animal, and of course, Moorhead didn't work out. But both of those were highly thought of around college baseball and college football when he made them. And then, Chris Lemonis was way outside the box. That seems to be paying off. Nobody was talking about Mike Leach. This is – and the people that we're talking about now, Johnny Harris and Matthew Mitchell, they may be – it may be somebody that we're not even discussing. And that would fall in line with what John Cohen's done. He loves to go outside of the box and think of somebody that, that is a good fit, but that no one else is talking about. And that's why I mentioned somebody like Kara Lawson or Becky Hammond, because it's just a John Cohen thing. It's not anybody that we're all talking about. It's not, the obvious, like the Billy Napiers and people like that whenever he was doing his first coaching search. So I could totally see him going off the grid and reaching for the stars for somebody like Kara Lawson.
And that's what an AD is pretty much supposed to do too, right? If we're going for the obvious hires, then you could just slot any person into an AD role and expect them to make the right hire for that position at any time.
Yeah, you don't want to get stuck in listening to what the fan base says, because the fan base and the media, we don't really know what we're talking about in the grand scheme of things. He's paid to hire the best person for Mississippi State and to put the best person in position to win games and compete for championships. And, he didn't hire Vic Schaefer, but he made sure that he was in position to be one of the top coaches in college basketball. So you got to give him credit for that. We'll see what happens. I don't know what his connection is inside the women's basketball world, but he mentioned to me yesterday he's already had a lot of people reach out to him, and he's going to have some options. I think there's going to be a lot of people that have been watching Mississippi State women's basketball over the years and seeing how much it's grown and how much is invested that want to be a part of that. So he should have a pretty good hire made. I think there's going to be plenty of people available for him to lock down.
There's a concern at this point for fans with getting coaches to stay. I think that's what's so shocking about Vic leaving is a lot of people thought maybe he wasn't going to be there forever, but at least for the next 2, 3, even 4 years. Do you think that concern with finding a coach who's willing to stay and see a program through is unreasonable at this point?
No, I think you always want to when you're making a hire, you always want to make sure that you're not hiring somebody that's going to use this job as a stepping stone. At least when you're in the SEC. I mean, there's some places where you just understand this person, if they have a good career, they're gone. But Mississippi State has been a stepping stone for many coaches. If you have a lot of success at Mississippi State in the past, you usually are going somewhere else. And we've seen that especially recently. So, I think you do want to get somebody that you feel like is going to be here for the long term. But also, like John said, you keep a list in your back pocket of coaches for opportunities like this. He's always got his mind on, what happens if. And, I think he was prepared for this like he was with football. I think he was prepared to have, a list of people that he had in mind. And, coaches aren't going to stay forever. You're always going to be having coaching changes, especially now more than ever. These coaches are just flying around the country. So, I think you want to get somebody that you feel like is going to stay here for a while, but you also want to get somebody that you feel like is going to take Mississippi State as far as it can go as soon as possible.
Hey, Robbie, time for one more question for you, my friend. We saw how quickly Texas went from announcing they weren't going to re-sign their previous head women's basketball coach. Vic Schaefer comes on Sunday. When would you expect State to nail down a candidate for the women's basketball club?
It's so hard to pin that down because John's been on two different sides of this. With the baseball, he hired Lamonis like 3 or 4 months afterwards because this happened so early. Football, it kind of lingered a little bit. I think Joe Moorhead was hired in a few days the first time around. So it's just so hard to know. But I feel like this thing's going to end pretty quickly. I don't think this is going to be something that lingers very long. He said yesterday that he wants to be – his words were thoughtful and thorough. So he doesn't want to rush this decision. But, I feel like there's going to be somebody that pops up that we know about pretty quickly. And, we're working the phone lines and trying to get the latest information on this stuff. I don't have a whole lot of information to give right now. But, I would say 2 weeks, maybe tops, if this thing happens. I think they're going to make a hire relatively quick.
Robbie, thanks so much for joining us, my man. Going to be a lot of long days ahead, I guess, during this quarantine.
Yeah, turn my days of our lives back on.
Robbie Faulk, follow him on Twitter. Go blow up his mentions. Go tell him that state needs to hire Gino Oriema and Greg Popovich on the same staff.
Gino.
Sounds good to me.
Gino.
Don Staley for director of ops.
Thanks, Robbie. Appreciate it, my man.
Robbie.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Robbie.